Now, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly meeting, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif held an informal interaction with the President of the United States, Joe Biden. The interaction took place during a reception that was hosted by US President Joe Biden in New York. This is the first interaction between the two leaders. Earlier, during his UNGA address, Biden urged world leaders to help Pakistan, which is still underwater.
We all know we're already living in a climate crisis. No one seems to doubt it after this past year. We meet. Much of Pakistan is still underwater. It needs help. Meanwhile, the Horn of Africa faces unprecedented drought.
It is also imperative to note here that the meeting between the two leaders comes at a time of regime change allegations. Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan had alleged that his ouster was a result of a US-sponsored plot, an allegation which still needs evidence. The PTI chief has reiterated the Shehbaz Sharif government as one that is backed by the United States of America. Apart from Biden, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken also met with the Pakistan Prime Minister and expressed concerns for the flood victims in Pakistan. He further assured Sharif of US commitment to stand with Pakistan as the country battles the most devastating floods it has witnessed in history. During the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, the Pakistan Prime Minister shared his concerns regarding the aftermath of the floods in the country. Since the start of the unprecedented monsoon rains and flooding, a total of 1,500 people have died and thousands more have been injured. Let's now talk about this latest camaraderie, and joining us live from New York for that, WION correspondents Anas Malik and Susan Teherani. Good to see you both and welcome to the program. Susan, I will start with you. This is a big step for America to offer assistance to Pakistan. What is the White House saying about the meeting between Biden and Shehbaz Sharif? Will we see some form of results from their talks very soon?
So, Eric, it's very important to note that this was an informal gathering. It was a reception by President Biden and his delegation to New York. So Shehbaz Sharif sort of had this interaction, if you may, with the president. It was not a sit-down, formal, bilateral, as Pakistan definitely would have hoped to have. So it was, you know, in line as at sort of a party venue, if you may, with Shehbaz Sharif and President Biden. Nonetheless, they were in the same room, they interacted, and we don't know, you know, what the content of their discussions were. But we do know that through U.S. aid, and that's something that the United States offers to all countries during times of distress and disaster, the United States has allocated some million dollars to Pakistan for its flood and its disaster relief that it generally basically does, you know, in times of need for many countries as well. And, you know, I think what was interesting is that it does have the backing of Congress. I mean, that we can talk about, that someone like Bob Menendez, who is on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said that this was a drop in the bucket for Pakistan. He's always, you know, been very critical of Pakistan policies, but when it comes to the humanitarian aspect of it, I think they all agreed that, you know, this was something that was hurting the people of Pakistan. But as it, you know, a distinction between an informal meeting at a party and a bilateral between Shehbaz Sharif and Biden, which has not happened.
All right, Susan, thank you very much for that. Anas Malik, coming to you. Relations between the United States and former government of Imran Khan were very frosty. Is the new Prime Minister trying to mend that? And what will be the significance and the impact of America's gesture to Pakistan?
Well, at this point of time, you rightly mentioned that the former Pakistani Prime Minister was not very well received by the Biden administration since it took charge sometime a year and a half back. But this government has been reaching out actively. They say that they have no enemies per se, and that they believe in engagement. And you've seen some positive gestures being made very recently. The visit of Derek Chollet, the councillor for Pakistan as well. He had a visit. Then the CENTCOM commanders had been back and forth between Pakistan and the US. And then just after the Pakistani Prime Minister leaves New York, then the Pakistani Foreign Minister will be dashing to DC on a bilateral visit. So clearly, there is a policy of re-engagement. There is a policy of engagement rather for mutual benefit. Pakistan would want to see the US, Pakistan would want the US to see itself, except for one prism, that is the prism of counterterrorism. So lots to gain on that front. But just adding to what Susan had said, yes, the US side has announced about $30 million worth aid. There have been about 4 flights of the US AID ferried by the US military, the Air Force, into Pakistan with relief goods. But what we have to understand is one thing. This was an informal conversation. This was not a structured bilateral meeting. But the fact that even an informal FaceTime happened between the Pakistani leadership and President Biden is quite significant, given that in the absence of any formal high-level leadership contact since President Biden took charge, then we had a change in government in Pakistan. So given the optics, this informal contact makes headlines and becomes very, very important. Eric?
All right, we'll have to end that discussion there. Been talking to WION correspondents Susan Teherani and Anas Malik, both of who are in New York. Thank you both. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.